Well, hello and welcome everyone. My name is Jeremy Leffler and I work in the policy office at the National Science Foundation. And it's my pleasure to welcome you today to our final week, our final day, and now our final session of the NSF Virtual Grants Conference. Before we begin, we're going to take a quick poll to find out a little bit more about you. So if you're using Zoom from a desktop browser, you may not be able to access the poll. And for best results, you want to make sure that you're viewing this in the Zoom application. If you've attended the first couple of weeks of this conference, you know that it's taken place over 2 weeks with 2 sessions per day, and the content has been similar to what it would be for an in-person grants conference. All of the sessions have been pre-recorded, and we will be taking live Q&A. For information about the sessions, presentations, and our speakers, please visit the conference website. If you have questions, please submit them using the Q&A function in Zoom. We're encouraging attendees to upvote questions, and to do so, navigate to the Q&A function and click on the thumbs up button next to the question. And this will bring the most popular questions to the top of our Q&A window. We are recording this session and it will be made available on our website at nsfpolicyoutreach.com in the coming weeks, and we'll send an email announcement as soon as all of the sessions have been posted. If you do have any technical difficulties during this presentation, please use the Q&A and somebody will assist you. I want to thank you for taking our poll. We're happy that you're able to join us, as this has been our first ever virtual grants conference. And I also want to remind you to please be on the lookout for survey emails so that you can provide feedback on how this has been going and how we might be able to improve on these types of events for the future. We hope that you have enjoyed the conference and all of the sessions that you've chosen to attend. And I'm now pleased to present this session on harassment and NSF and institutional responsibilities. And this session will be covered by Rhonda Davis and Bob Cosgrove from the NSF Office of Diversity and Inclusion.
Greetings. Welcome to the National Science Foundation's update on the Foundation's activities to address harassment. Today, I'm Rhonda Davis from the Office of Diversity and Inclusion with Robert Cosgrove, who will introduce himself later, here to discuss these activities. We will discuss sexual and other forms of harassment notification requirements, procedures for handling submitted notifications under the harassment term and condition, including the role of program officers, update on NSF's conference policy relating to harassment, REUs, panelists, important reminders, and then we'll let you know where you can reach out to us for any questions. In regards to the harassment notification term and condition, I would like to share you some developments that we've learned and we've done during the implementation of it. The term and condition has been in place since October 22nd, 2018, and it requires authorized organizational representatives to notify NSF regarding one or two of the following. If any findings or determinations regarding PIs, PDs, or co-PIs and co-PDs that demonstrate a violation of awardee codes of conduct, policies, regulations, or statutes relating to sexual harassment, other forms of harassment, or sexual assault. Or if the awardee places the PI, PD, or co-PI, co-PD on administrative leave or imposes an administrative action relating to a finding or investigation of a violation of awardee policies, codes of conduct, statutes or regulations relating to sexual harassment, other forms of harassment, or sexual assault. It is also important to know that although we only require the co-PI or the PI to be notified, so we do require other personnel supported by NSF award. The NSF award, it must also remain in compliance with awardee policies or codes of conduct, statutes, regulations, or executive orders. For any personnel not in compliance, the awardee must make appropriate arrangements to ensure both the safety and security of award personnel and the continued progress of the funded project. Notification of these actions is not required under the term and condition. At this time, I will turn it over to Bob Cosgrove.
Thank you, Rhonda, and greetings, everyone. I'm Bob Cosgrove. I also work in the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. I'm the Awardee Compliance Program Specialist. So I'm going to take you through the next couple of slides about the procedures for when an awarding institution submits a harassment notification to us, that, the basic process that Rhonda had described. All the notifications that we get are required to come in one format only, and that's the electronic format, as demonstrated here at this particular web link here. This is a web link. If you would press on it, we'll go directly to the ODI webpage at NSF's website, and it'll bring up the harassment notification form that the authorized organization representative is to fill out, and only that person is to fill it out, no one else from the institution. Now, once that is filled out with some basic pertinent information that we're requiring for this process, that goes to ODI and is stored on a secure support website that only is accessible to the following people: selected staff from BFA and Policy, Office of General Counsel, and ODI. We're the only people that receive the notification that are able to review it. So once we get that into our system and we get notified through our email system that it's been received, we take a very good look at it. And at first, we will reach out to the institution or the organization that has submitted that, and we will verify that the institution did indeed send us that notification, because our website basically is public access, and there is no other identifying requirement that the organization has to put in. So we have to make sure that the organization is actually submitting and confirm that. So once it's confirmed that the organization has submitted a notification, then we just go briefly through what our next steps will be with the AOR who contacts us. And what basically happens is we do initial review of the information contained in it, where that we look to see if it's an administrative action, and if so, what kind of administrative action it is. Is it a finding? What kind of findings are involved? We look at the basic description of the incident or event that spawned the complaint or the finding to see what the nature of the incident is and who's affected on the award, who the actors are involved, of course, who the PI or co-PI is that report's been submitted to. And once we look at all that information, we then do initial consultation with our harassment notification work group, where we discuss the notification. Then we determine what next steps on our NSF are required for the AOR to go forward with. Whether we need additional information or we require more deeper consultation. So if there is further discussion or fact gathering that is warranted on our side at NSF, and usually it is, we will contact the AOR to schedule a conference call or Zoom meeting now between the work group, program staff, that is the cognizant program officer assigned to the particular award or awards that have been named in the notification, perhaps their leadership manager of that particular directorate or NSF program group, and the awardee staff to talk about the basic facts and situation involving the notification. So we obtain the information in that phone call or meeting, and then we take the information and that helps guide how we determine what our next steps here at NSF is, how we're going to process and in our decision making regarding the notification that we're reviewing. And those are the 4 factors. These are all listed in the original harassment notification that we released 2 years ago, October 2018. Safety and security of personnel supported by the NSF award, the overall impact of NSF-funded activity, the continued advancement of taxpayer-funded investment in the science and scientists, and whether the awardee has taken appropriate action to ensure that the continuity of science and the continued progress under the funded project can be made under that award with the current situation at hand. Now, once we get all information from the various conference calls or Zoom meetings we have, the initial and any subsequent one, then we'll determine if there's any follow-up that's required with the awardee. And based on the results of the review and evaluation of these 4 factors, the Foundation NSF will determine the following. 1, whether the awardee is addressing the matter adequately and appropriately and with no further action currently needed by NSF, or we may make suggestions as to further steps that the awardee institution should consider based on the 4 evaluation factors listed in the previous slide, or, and I must emphasize, this is a last resort, last step. If all that can't be addressed, then NSF could assert its programmatic stewardship responsibilities and oversight authority to initiate a substitution or removal of the PI or any of the co-PIs named in the notification. We can reduce the award funding amount, or, and when none of those previous options available are adequate, we can ultimately suspend or terminate the award. And anytime I make this determination, ODI will communicate back to the awardee NSF's determination and recommendation. And Rhonda, I hand it back to you.
Thank you. The long-term disengagement, that is what we typically call the 90-day rule. And in regards how it is impacted by the harassment notification term and condition, in our PAPG Chapter 7B2A states, in the event that PI/PD or co-PI/co-PD will be disengaged from the project for a period greater than 3 months, example, a sabbatical leave, but intends to return, arrangements for oversight of the project must be signed and submitted by the AR via use of NSF's electronic systems. This request must be submitted at least 30 days before departure or as soon as practicable after the prospective disengagement is known. It is important to note that the harassment term and condition does not eliminate this long-standing requirement.
Great.
Wow.
Yep, and thank you, Rhonda. Now, onward to another part of the PAP guide that's relevant to NSF's actions with regard to addressing and limiting harassment in NSF research-funded programs. And that's coverage on conference proposals. We have a grant requirement now in place that's included in the most recent revision of the PAP guide that addresses conference proposals. So, with of course, our longstanding commitment to creating harassment-free environments with NSF funding that's supported by it, proposers are required to have a policy or a code of conduct that addresses sexual harassment, other forms of harassment, and sexual assault. Now, the policy that the proposer must have clear and accessible means of reporting violations of the policy or the code of conduct. Now, the policy, when developed, must address the methods for making a complaint, as well as how those complaints are received during the conference, how those complaints will be resolved on the ground at that conference. So both for anything preceding the conference as well as actually when things do occur at the conference, or even after the conference as well. Policy or code of conduct, of course, must be disseminated to conference participants prior to attendance of the conference as well as made available to the conference itself. And lastly, this requirement for the conference proposals is for those proposals submitted for NSF support of the conferences. The one last thing we do want to point out that's very important is that NSF, in having this requirement, is not requesting that the proposers submit at time of proposal submission the actual code of conduct, the complaint procedures, and how it's disseminated. That is not something that has to be submitted. We at NSF do not review those things prior to award, and we do not approve them prior to award as a contingent upon approving an award. NSF expects you to have these in place if you are awarded the award, and we may reserve the right to review what has been developed and implemented at some future point during the lifespan of the award. Rhonda?
Thank you. Research experiences for undergraduates, and that's what we call the REU program. And we made some modifications. The REU solicitation now includes language requiring proposals for REU sites to have a policy or code of conduct that addresses sexual harassment, other forms of harassment, and sexual assault, and also to provide an orientation for all participants in the REU site. That means REU students, faculty, postdocs, graduate students, other research mentors, etc., to cover expectations of behavior to ensure a safe and respectful environment for all participants, and to review the organization's policy or code of conduct addressing sexual harassment, other forms of harassment, and sexual assault, including reporting and complaint procedures. Bob?
Thank you, Rhonda. And one of the other tools that we have in terms of ensuring that our NSF-funded programs and activities are free of harassment and we provide for safe and inclusive research environments is that we've had the longstanding requirements under Title IX to it, where we require all of our awarding institutions that have education programs to not discriminate on the basis of sex. NSF's regulations, as you can see on the slide, are at 45 CFR 618. And there's a number of elements in how we do Title IX compliance here at NSF. Again, besides prohibiting discrimination on the basis of sex in education programs and activities, we, because there's so many other federal agencies, such as Education Department, Department of Justice, and NASA, for example, who do active Title IX compliance activities, such as investigation and compliance reviews, we limit our activities only to NSF-funded programs, and those programs that may be directly impacted or affected or working with the NSF-funded programs. Important to note that not only is sexual harassment prohibited by Title IX, and also that gender-based harassment, things that are based on sex, not necessarily sexual in nature, are also forms of discrimination under Title IX, and NSF works just as diligently to prohibit those forms of harassment as well as sexual harassment. Now, NSF enforces Title IX and seeks compliance from our awarding organizations through two methods, primarily compliance reviews, where we actually select the institutions we would go either visit or request information from to see gauge your overall compliance to Title IX, both at, say, an overarching level regarding to the Title IX administration at the institution, as well as particular departments or units at the organization that are in receipt of or using NSF funding. You know, for example, we may go to a physics department or science department where we have a number of PIs who are assigned to NSF awards and are teaching or conducting research on a number of students in those awards. We do through those compliance reviews each fiscal year, and we select institutions based on a variety of factors such as how much money they receive from NSF, how many PIs they have, geographic distribution across the United States in terms of our site selection, other factors. And also very important to note, while the harassment notification term and condition, the institution's response to that is based on their ability to comply with Title IX regulations they may have with NSF or other federal agencies. The harassment notification process itself is a separate and distinct process in Title IX. Submitting a notification doesn't ensure they necessarily comply with Title IX. Also, too, the process that we use to review the notifications is very much contained within the PAP guide, and those procedures are required in terms of grant administration by NSF. In regards to Title IX, you may have recently heard that the U.S. Department of Education has revised its Title IX regulations back in May of this year, 2020. When the final rule came out and was released, the final rule stipulated that those actual regulations would go into effect on August 14th, 2020. Education Department provided a period of time for institutions that receive Education Department money, many of whom also receive NSF funding, to comply with those requirements. It's very important to note that even though the Education Department has changed its Title IX regulations, NSF has not. Our regulations have not changed at this time, so we are expecting our awardee organizations, when it comes to matters before NSF, that we're dealing with, such as complaints and compliance reviews or other activities, we expect the awardee organizations to comply with our Title IX regulations. So that said, we know that these regulations can have impacts on a variety of programs and institutions that there may be some cross-cutting activity with, such as complaint investigations and the like, or compliance reviews. Going forward, we will review the changes that Education Departments make and their impact on NSF-funded programs, compliance reviews, and the Title IX complaints that are filed on or after August 14th when the new Education Department regulation went into effect. And then back to you, Rhonda.
Thank you, Bob. That concludes our presentation today. If you have any inquiries that you'd like to reach out to us about anything, feel free to submit an email to sexualharassmenttnc@nsf.gov. You can also call us at 703-292-8020 or email program complaints@nsf.gov. If you do not hear back from us within 48 hours, please do send another communication to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to welcome you back and ask Bob and Rhonda if they could join me. We've received a couple of questions, but I would ask if you do have questions, now's the time to submit them, and we'll try to answer them live here. So I'll go ahead and just read out the first one, Bob and Rhonda, and this is with regard, obviously, to the term and condition. And this person is saying that they have not seen these in their cooperative agreement, but their coworkers have seen notification in their grant awards, and they're asking, would they be different on this? And then I guess from a policy perspective, I would state that, you know, there's not whether you're getting an award made through a grant mechanism or a cooperative agreement, this term and condition will apply. But I think what may have happened here is it's going to depend on when your award was made and when when any funding increments are made. If you haven't had any funding increments since October 22nd of 2018, then you're not going to see it in your terms and conditions. But I'll leave if you have anything further that you want to mention on that.
So Jeremy, I think you nailed that. That is exactly right. So the term and condition is not retroactive. But the grants and cooperative agreements is interchangeable. But you're right. If the grant that the person is working on was a grant prior to the effective date of the term and condition, October, then it would not be applicable. If they had a funding amendment, it would be applicable.
Right. Thank you. Okay. The next question is asking if virtual conferences funded by NSF are still covered by the Conference Code of Conduct policy.
It is.
Yes.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. The last question that we have here right now is, what is the definition of harassment that is used by NSF? Does academic bullying count?
Well,
so, okay, Bob.
Yeah. The definition of harassment that we use, things that are harassment must be tied to one of our civil rights laws that we enforce. And that would include anything on the basis of race, color, national origin, gender / sex, disability, age. So anything that's harassing conduct that falls under those bases would be something for which we can take accept complaints for, reviewing our compliance reviews if we do that process. The term and condition, also the same thing. It also includes unlawful harassment, and that's along the same lines as well. We may also look at, if we do get a violation of the institution's code of conduct, we would review that as well in terms of what happened with the PR Code PINE award with respect to the harassment notification. Academic bullying, per se, no, on its own. That academic bullying needs to be tied to a protected class, such as race, sex, national origin, disability, age, and the like. Ron, do you have anything to add to that?
No, only thing I was going to add to it is to make sure everybody aware is that when we came out with the term and condition, that was our first entry point to be more assertive to tackle these issues, and bullying was on the table. We did not incorporate it into this first initiative, and we're not ruling it out that we will not, and we're not ruling it in, but we started with low-hanging fruit, and we're continually adding new things. So bullying is something that we are definitely aware of, and the frequency of it. So just know that it is something that we are talking about, though.
Okay, the next question says that their university's procedure currently has their Title IX coordinator submitting names. Do they need to adjust their practice to have the AOR be the submitter?
Having reviewed that question, probably use a little more clarity on it, but our practice with the harassment notification is that the notification itself must come from the AOR that's the person listed on the proposal that was awarded by NSF. So in other words, that notification should not be coming from the Title IX coordinator. Unless you come from the AOR, who typically, as we know, is probably an office of sponsored projects or a similar office at the institution. Now, Title IX coordinators, of course, can participate in the notification process by providing the AOR the information that's needed to be reported to us, or even participate in any sort of ensuing conversations we have about that particular term and condition. Of course, we don't expect the AOR to know everything about an incident or an issue, and the Title IX coordinator would be helpful with that. But the Title IX coordinator is not the person who reports to us that information directly under the harassment notification process. Now, if we had a Title IX complaint investigation going on, which is a different thing, or a compliance that we're doing, then yes, we would be communicating with the Title IX coordinator about those issues. So I hope that answers that.
And if somebody were to have, want to get a little bit more clarity on that, what's the best way to do that?
A little more clarity. Go ahead, Rhonda.
To provide more information to you on that question.
Yes, so they can respond. We listed several locations where it could be the sexual harassment TNC at NSF, or on the last that last page of our presentation has where they can send and get additional information. I'd like to just kind of follow up on what Bob said to make sure it's very important. It was very intentionally designed that the AOR is the one to reach out to us, because the term and condition is not a Title IX regulation that we are extending. It's something that complements it. So, but we do have Title IX and VPs of diversity sometime talking to us in conjunction with AORs, but it's important if it was a term and condition notification that it's the AOR. Now, it could have been a Title IX matter, but we don't have any details, but they are more than welcome to follow up with us.
Great. The next question is, have there been any situations in which NSF has terminated an award or required that a PI or co-PI be replaced or substituted? So NSF, I guess they're asking, has NSF taken action to terminate an award or required that a PI or co-PI has been replaced or substituted? Have we gone down that road yet?
Yeah, we've had a combination of all of that.
Okay. That's all the questions that I have at the moment. So again, if you have a question that you think of later, there's certainly you can go to the Office of Diversity and Inclusion website, and they'll find ways to contact folks there. Sexual harassment TNC at nsf.gov is one of the ways that you can do that. And I want to thank Rhonda and Bob for presenting today and for answering your questions. And I want to thank all of you for attending this session and also the grants conference over the last week or two. If you've attended a number of sessions, we hope they've been useful. Again, please do be on the lookout for a survey email so you can let us know how we've done and how we can improve. And I want to wish everyone well and be safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.